On December 8, 1940, the first national championship aired on national radio. The Chicago Bears trampled the Redskins 73-0, but on a farmhouse near Leicester, Elvie and Emma Meyer had their fifth child, George Elvie Meyer. George was born on a farmhouse 3 miles north of Leicester. He had brown eyes and hair. He had 2 brothers and 8 sisters, Mary Louise, Doreen, Raymond, Caroline, Margaret, Irene, Earl, Paulette, Lila, and Madeline, who died as an infant. His dad farmed with his neighbors, and his mother was a stay-at-home mom. Growing up, George had many chores, like milking cows and collecting eggs. One year, George's family sold his dog to a family in Canton. The family brought it home, and a few days later it ran away. Then later, when George's family woke up, the dog was at their farmhouse. It ran from Canton to their small farmhouse in Leicester. Most of George's work was manual labor, like harvesting potatoes, collecting wood, cobs, and coal for the furnace. They'd do many fun things with their relatives, like picking wild grapes, fishing at Lake Bend with their grandpa and grandma. They would go see their cousins in Kansas and West Bend sometimes. But every week, their mother would make fresh baked breads and buns, which was a treat to the family. George attended the Leicester Public School, and his favorite teacher was Mrs. Solfeld. They rode to school in their neighbor's bus, which was a pickup. The girls would walk slowly to the bus so the boys could get changed from milking cows. George was active in choir, baseball, and basketball, and his favorite subject was math. He graduated in 1958 in a class of 12. He received the Citizenship Award during his graduation. After high school, he worked for his father for $200 a month, later going to the Army. He jumped out of helicopters and rode in C-130s. He also camped out 25 miles away for 2 weeks at a time. The first car George bought was under $2,000. It was a 1963 blue-green Dodge. While he was in the Army, the assassination of John F. Kennedy happened, and George's neighbor, Meph, was in the same group as Elvis Presley. After the Army, when George arrived home, George's dad built one of the first hog barns with a pit under it in the area. On April 2, 1966, George married Charlene Bauman. They met when Raymond married Twyla Bauman, who was Charlene's sister. They had their honeymoon in Texas, and while they were down there, they saw George's brother Earl in the Army. During their marriage, they lived in a trailer house, and George bought the 80 acres from his dad, then later bought the other 80. They butchered chickens, raised cows, pigs, and then had layers. George and Sherilyn had their first child, Sid Meyer, on May 5, 1967. They later had 7 others: Sandra, Clark, Kathy, Wesley, Wayne, Gwen, and Glenn. All of their kids helped out on the farm, and they all participated in the fair somehow. One year when Wesley was leading his steer around the farm, it kept running away from him. So George said, and took the rope and said, "Let me show you how this is done." So then the steer took off, and a little bit later, the steer took a sharp right and then flung George right into the side of the building. He received a broken nose for it. This year, some pictures of them threshing at their home place. These are some pictures from Gwen's graduation. All of them eventually married, but on February 12, 2000, during Sandra's wedding reception's cleanup, Sherilyn had a heart attack and then later died in the hospital. The worst day George could remember was the day when his nephew Terry and his dad were hurt. Terry came out of the farmhouse to go to the tractor, and he somehow got caught in the PTO. but released himself. George then found him and took him to the house, and they called the ambulance. Later, George's dad was in the tractor, and George saw a fire coming from the tractor, so he ran through the field to see what was happening. And when he got there, he saw that his dad had tried to drive the tractor out of the field, but since he was wearing polyester clothes, the fire got over him. He ran out, stopped, dropped, and rolled. They called the ambulance, but he died in the hospital from infection in St. Paul. For George's retirement, he sold his farm to Gwen and moved to the retirement apartments in Leicester. He's gone on some vacations, like to Florida and Mexico. He's helped with Meals on Wheels and is the president of the Lyon County Fair Board. He worked for AB Tiling as a bulldozer, just for some help. For George's legacy, he would like to leave behind as being an honest, trustworthy person. Thank you.